safe. I guess it was a great celebration yesterday, and I want to thank all those that put that on for the town, and happy birthday. On the agenda tonight is the public safety departments. So dispatch, EMS, police and fire. I know the police and fire chief are in the building. They're down with capital planning right now, as well as Susan's down there, but we'll get started. We will get started with dispatch first, if that works. So if you want to come up and present your budget, Director Hook.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, committee members. I'm just going to hand out a revised budget. If I may.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, since my last budget that I submitted, we had some negotiations with Sharon and Abington and Whitman, which the result of those negotiations were an increase of revenues to the town. So I wanted to propose a new budget, a level-funded budget for the town of Holbrook for FY17.
We'd like to hear that. That's a good start.
With the understanding that we really can't cut that. You know, it's back to, we'll be in tough shape if we do that, you know, back to FY15, but going to submit a level funded budget for 17.
Is the expense, so the expense line item isn't level funded, should that be level funded?
No, no. Because we separated from the fire department, we need some additional revenue in general expense, just to cover some of our IT expenses. And that's a $4,800 increase.
And I know there was, who's on the public safety subcommittee?
Mike and I.
You guys were made aware of, I guess, there's a chart with the revenue side and it's a sort of a big picture.
The discussion purposes?
Yes, yeah, I think it's just sort of but to understand sort of the ins and outs of all of the departments, where all the money's coming from, the grants, so on and so forth, some preliminary process or procedure or formula for cost sharing of towns, and obviously you can't jump from 0 to 100, but sort of, I think the recent agreements are sort of a pathway to sort of continue on that process of getting to a fair, everybody paying their fair share. We're looking at all of the costs involved with running a dispatch center.
I mean, that definitely, from when I was going through this, I just took it as a pure, using your numbers, and I broke it down. It's $63 for each call that is taken at the center. I mean, that to me is extraordinary.
Now, when you say, I just want to, because this was a quick discussion point before. When you have calls in your charts and things like that, is that physical answering of the phone, or is that, what is that, what does a call mean to
No,
you?
it's not. A call is a call where we dispatch a fire truck, an ambulance, or a police cruiser too. It's an incident. We have many, many more calls for service.
So your count is just,
Emergency calls, correct.
It's more dispatching something. So it's not, somebody called and had a question, or.
Right, or a permit.
You were able to do something, good.
Or somebody coming into the window, somebody requesting a permit, somebody calling about something that's not an emergency, they're just looking for information on something. Those calls are probably 4 times this or 5 times this amount.
so do you offer that to these other communities as well?
No, nope, that's just Holbrook. These communities that we service, we only answer emergency calls for. We don't answer business calls. We don't obviously have people coming to the window. So that's some differences between the town. There's some clerical responsibilities that we do for Holbrook as well. So there are some additional responsibilities that we do for Holbrook that we don't do for the other communities.
So if somebody were to call and say have one of those non-emergency, they call 911, and they get, I imagine, your dispatch center.
Yep.
And it's, you identify quickly that it's a non-emergency situation, they need general information or something. What do you do then? You transfer it to their town hall or their local station or whatnot?
Most of the times, we give them the number and instruct them to call their local, whatever it is.
But I think that, I had seen it also, and it seemed like a good working document that's trying to understand a lot of the information involved. And I know that yourself, being as the director, and Administrator Gordon have worked on that and working on numbers, and I know that we're now in discussions again I just saw tonight on the Selectmen's agenda that for this Wednesday, with the town of Canton, there's preliminarily intermunicipal agreement meeting gonna happen on Wednesday. Be interesting to see the figures behind that intermunicipal agreement before we enter into, I want to make sure we're entering with our eyes open, if you will.
So that intermunicipal agreement between the town of Holbrook and the town of Canton is mainly so we can move forward with our grants, okay? I spoke to the 911 department, and we've been tentatively awarded a grant for startup of Canton, but we can't execute the grant until we have an intermunicipal agreement between the two towns. So this is just a process, the next step.
But does that agreement with that agreement on Wednesday, is it
Yes.
it's a preliminary
We can
agreement?
ask.
Or will it have hard figures on
It
what
does.
payments will be?
And the payments, the negotiated payment for the town of Canton was $225,000 for FY17 prorated. We're not going to be able to start July 1 of 17. It's not going to happen. We're probably looking at this time realistically of next year. And then 18 is a 2% increase, and 19 is a 2% increase.
And what's the grant?
The grant is for startup equipment, radios, microwave connectivity, CAT. There's a lot of technology. One of the pieces that gets, we focus on labor and people answering the telephone, but there's a lot of technology that goes in. There's $1 million worth of technology that goes into, linking the towns together. So that is some of this technology that we have to purchase in order to do the job.
And how much is the grant? Is that gonna cover all the expense, or?
It will cover all the startup expenses. The grant is for $222,000.
And what's the cost sharing between Canton and Holbrook?
What do you mean the cost sharing?
Are we gonna be burdened with all of the cost, expenses to maintain the service, to provide the service? Or are they gonna actually, share the costs?
Well, they're paying us for a service, so they're gonna pay $225,000.
And so the total amount to provide them that service is what?
Well, the total amount is, 911's providing the startup equipment, and we're gonna have to hire some people. So we're working on that, exactly how many people we're gonna have to hire, whether it's full-time or part-time, what shifts need to be covered. We just took on Whitman, about a month ago, so we're waiting for the dust to settle with Whitman to see where we stand with manpower on that, what the call volume is, stuff like that, before we move on to Canton.
And why do we need to hire to cover Canton? We're not scalable enough to take on that town without...
No, we are running skeleton as we are. I mean, you need to remember that, with all due respect, when we did the town of Holbrook Fire and Police only, we had 8.5 full-time employees. Today we have 10 full-time employees. And we're doing 4 other towns, 6 other agencies. So we didn't really hire a lot of people when we took these other towns on. Canton is definitely going to be the busiest town that we do. So we need to take a hard look at manpower, who we have staffed on what shifts. So I'm working on that.
Yeah, are we approaching this from you don't wanna overhire until you see what the real, do they have numbers?
They do.
That they can
Yep.
share with us? as to
Absolutely, yeah, and that's,
When their volume is and what,
they do. They do.
and you don't think through other efficiencies that it can get spread with the staff that you have?
Absolutely not. No, it's not safe for the residents, and it's not safe for the first responders on the street.
Now, I want to play the other side of the coin for a second. I think that, say that the town of Canton currently, I believe, does independent police dispatching with the dispatcher and
This is
independent
fire-only dispatch.
This is
that we're
fire only.
taking, yes.
They're only taking on fire, and they have one full-time person doing fire, one firefighter at a dispatch station like we used to do a long time ago.
Correct. Yep, they have a firefighter.
So they have one full-time person doing this work for the entire town. If we're taking it over, you think that we'd be able to do it at least,
Yeah,
just,
but
I
the
mean,
point of
with,
having
with one or close to one, whether it's 1.1 because you gotta get some other efficiencies and whatnot, or 0.9, or, is that sort of the range you were talking about, 1 to 1.5, or a half to 1.5, that kind
For
of
new
thing?
employees, is that what you mean?
Yeah, to add on,
We're not gonna hire 4 new full-time people to cover Canton, if that's what you're asking.
yeah, I'm saying by adding on Canton, what do you think your FTEs approximately would go up? Is it gonna go up like 2 or less? Is it gonna go up 2 to 3, 3 to 4? I mean, I'm not trying to pigeonhole you that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
if you say 1.5 and then you come back and say it's 2, but
Right.
what sort of range are we looking at?
Yeah, and I gotta be careful, I don't wanna be put on the spot and make a statement tonight that I'm gonna be held for, by the union and stuff like that, but, we're gonna take a careful look at their call volume, what days, nights, hours are busier, what we have currently for staffing, and where the best fit for new employees will be. We want to make sure that, and with all due respect, we're not dispatching taxi cabs. We're dispatching fire trucks and ambulances, and there are some, we don't want to be put in a spot where we can't handle the call volume. If there's a spike in calls, and you're getting calls, there's been, with all these overdose deaths, it's not unusual for us to be doing CPR simultaneous to 2 CPR calls at the same time. You know what I mean? And those are calls that can't be put on hold, for lack of a better speaking, so.
So with all due respect, then you should have, in my mind, already have those numbers ready as far as, okay, this is what it's gonna take to sustain Holbrook, Whitman, and to add on Kenton, and this is what you're gonna need by the time Kenton decided to say yes or no, is that what you're saying? So you should be able to have the difference in what Holbrook will have to provide, the amount that Holbrook will have to provide for this new program, and if it's gonna be beneficial for Holbrook.
Well, it's certainly going to be beneficial for Holbrook, just like every other town that we took on is a benefit to Holbrook. And I do have those numbers. And I know, where we need to be. I know where the center needs to be for staffing. So a lot of research, this isn't just a number that we pulled out of the sky, a lot of research went into this number, and it was agreeable both between Canton and Holbrook.
Sorry, I'm late, apologize. Because I'm jumping in, but just, so basically the 225 is the money that you expect to contract with Canton.
Correct.
And in your calculation, you expect that not only cover any additional cost to Holbrook, perhaps cover a new hire or 2, depending on back numbers. The 225, based on the estimates you and whoever works with you to put it together, is gonna say, okay, this 225 are gonna cover any additional costs that may come to Holbrook. The 222 grand will cover any new equipment. And then within that 225, we hope to hire 1 or 2, again, whatever people go in. But those people aren't gonna be just exclusively to Canton. We
No.
need those people to cover volume, so we may actually get the economies of scale out of that 225 and hopefully make
Absolutely.
election money. So that's where that 225 came from. That's what the research showed you.
Correct. So when we hire staff, they're just not for a particular town. Everybody's in there cross-trained. So the Canton dispatcher can work with Holbrook. If the Holbrook dispatcher gets busy, they have additional people in there that can help each other out. So it's just not, you get hired, you're the Canton dispatcher, and if you're not busy, you sit there with your feet up on the desk all day. That's not how it works.
So what's the projected benefit for Holbrook?
The projected revenue benefit? Well, I think it's too early for me to project that at this time. I don't want to say exactly what that's going to be, because we haven't executed a contract with Canton yet, and I don't want to go on a limb. I don't want the Canton selectmen to say, hey, Holbrook's profiting off of this, and why are we going to do it for this amount when we could do it for this amount? So I need to be careful what I say, and I hope you respect that.
I do, so what's the estimate then? based on your past experience with Whitman. So, because in my mind, anytime that you go into a project, you should already have an idea of what is gonna be the deficit or the surplus for your town.
Gonna be no
So-
deficit.
Okay,
There will be a profit for Holbrook, okay? And in addition to revenue coming in, you're gonna have additional manpower there, like I just discussed. You could have the additional people working on the Holbrook desks, police and fire, not just the Canton desk. The other thing that gets overlooked sometimes, regional center, you know, we get a lot of grant opportunities for equipment and capital expenditures. So in the last 4 years, Holbrook has realized almost $1.5 million in capital improvements that we wouldn't have received otherwise, being a regional center. And some of the stuff is new laptops, new computers, new laptops in the trucks, new desktops for both police, fire, communications, new console radio equipment, new CAD system, fire records management, police records management, all stuff that the town would be purchasing otherwise, but we're purchasing it through the regional center. So,
Now,
other than revenue, there's some other stuff, you know, capital items that we benefit from as well.
now, when you know, are using your cost basis against your revenue, right? I mean, you're also including your indirect costs, like health insurance, retirement funds.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. And that's, the indirect costs are on that paper that was handed out.
And have you had luck with going back and renegotiating some of these contracts? I know last time when we spoke, you were gonna
So-
speak to a couple other towns.
The difference between Canton aside, because that's not done yet, but the Abington, Sharon, Whitman, the difference in revenues this year, FY '17, will be increased approximately $130,000, okay, with the new contracts that we've signed. So we're bringing in this year, FY '17, an additional $130,000. That's why we're level funding FY '17 for Holbrook.
And you, if you, I understood you said those are based on the new renegotiated contracts? How long do those last? Just out of curiosity.
3 years,
So you get 3 more years of the current contracts you signed, whatever, recently?
correct.
And they all have escalator clauses, annual escalator.
2% each year.
So that renegotiation will bring in $130,000 extra dollars per year for the next 3 years.
Correct,
With 2% increases in.
correct.
Well, it's $130 more every year than last year. It's not necessarily 130
Yes,
than
yes.
260. Just the way you said it,
Yep,
I
yep,
got
yep.
confused.
Yes, it's not,
It's 130 more than the last contract.
Do we have enough room at the current public safety to handle that?
We do. We have enough room to bring on Canton. Anything beyond Canton, we're gonna have to look at expanding and, or in addition to our building. Next year in May, the plan is, to apply for construction grant through 911, see if they would fund an expansion. They have given us some money for an architect, and we are going through that process at the time, right now. And they're coming up with some cost analysis and some, you know, what we would need for space, so we can move on to the next step, so.
Hey, Pete, what are you doing with those satellite buildings on the schools? Now we're getting a new school, can you give them the satellite buildings?
other questions for dispatch?
Yeah, I guess just one last one. The prorated 2017, when you lock up with Canton, it'll be a 3-year deal.
Yes,
In the ballpark of the 2017 number, I imagine, of prorated 225.
say that again, I'm sorry.
The Canton deal
Yep.
will be 225 per year-ish over the next 3 years. It's not going to be 225, then 125.
So again, the proposal was 225
Yep.
in FY '17 prorated.
Right.
Okay? FY '18, 225 plus 2%.
Okay.
FY '19, whatever that is, plus 2%.
The
That's
only-
what.
The only proration is in the first year, depending on when the startup date is.
Correct, exactly, yep.
But once it's live, it's live.
I have a question. I was looking at the spreadsheet of the budget and the salary items. And the ones we have here with not counting benefits, it comes to $59,000 a person on the low side. Plus benefits, I'm assuming that's gonna be closer to $75,000. Bringing on 4 people, that's
I
gonna...
didn't say we're
that's
bringing on
gonna-
4 people.
You said you were looking to hire 4.
No, I said we were looking to hire people. I didn't say we were looking to hire 4. No, Canton currently has 4, but we would not need 4 people. We would have to look at our busy times.
So if we hire more than 3, we're gonna, all that money, revenue has been eaten up.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's the thing, is if you're paying 60,000 in base salary and stipends and really it's $25,000 a year in fringe benefits, because we have a very good health insurance program, as I think we've went over many times here. We pay a significant portion of health costs, and then you add dental and retirement and all of the other fringe benefits that go, it adds up significantly. And so that's a concern that I've had, that, you know, at 225, and you use a ballpark number, say 80,000, just to whatever, you know, if you get to 3 employees, then we're upside down. And that can happen, I think, very quickly. So that's that fine line of, and I'm concerned with having a hard number before we, and I understand that you've got negotiations and more strategy to undertake, and we've got negotiations internally with our own collective bargaining units. I'm not trying to put you on a spot and go down that road, but just that to enter in without having those hard numbers, as someone pointed out, or being able to share with us those harder numbers for other reasons because of negotiating, makes it difficult to kind of, you know, I think we're very much in favor of the concept of growing it. We understand economies of scale, getting more services, hopefully, and offsetting some of the entire population's costs, including Holbrook and other towns that are doing it. But we want to make sure it's fair. And I think for a long time there, it's still not perfectly fair, I think, with Abington, Sharon, and Whitman. I think we're better than we were significantly. But I would like to say that if we're going to go on with Canton, that we want it to be fair from Jump Street. And I think that's just a concern when we look at the big picture numbers, because adding on Canton, yes, there's additional capital that we'll get and all that, but there is the ongoing salary that 2 years from now, that's a bill that Holbrook has to pay.
Right.
And they have to pay the insurance and all those benefits, but we're locked in with that 225 plus 2%, whatever it is.
So I will tell you that I understand your concern. We are not looking for, myself personally, is not looking for the town of Holbrook to offset the cost of town of Canton's fire dispatch, you know. So if it's not profitable for Holbrook, we're not gonna do it. I mean, that's the end of the, you know, it's the end. So all that stuff was taken into consideration when that figure was given. And, you know, I do know how many people that we need to run the center, and this is gonna be a profitable thing for the town.
Now, quick question. Are these union employees who are doing dispatch?
Yes.
And what's their agreed upon raises yearly? I mean, do they have a set?
Currently in negotiations.
So it would have to be less than 2%, because that's your accelerator on each one of these deals.
That is typically, 2% is typically, what is given out. I don't want to say what they're getting this year, because it's
a
negotiations, but, you know, standard practice is 2%.
But the other part of that is the fringe benefits aren't capped at 2%. And that's where, that's one of the biggest cost drivers is, as you know, we all know, it's the fringe benefits. So when you say it's a 2%, whatever it was last week with the schools, 2% on the total salary and benefits, well, if the fringe benefits go up 10 and 15%, which is what they're going up then you can't get 2% on the other part of the salary. The math doesn't work.
Yep.
So that's.
Speaking of math, I'm a little confused. And your points are all valid, but Pete's point was, at one point said we hired 3 people, that's like $75,000 a person?
No, it's more than that. Well, if you say.
Well, that's why I'm not getting the math. I'm not getting
So
the math part of it.
And we could be wrong, but when we look at we have a communicate, I think it's backup table 1, backup spreadsheet 1.
I may not have that.
The average salary for the full-time employees is $60,509 with.
That's the part I was
With
missing.
stipends and everything.
That's the
So
part
then
I
you
was
have
missing.
fringe benefits and.
Okay.
It'd be close to that 80.
That's the part I couldn't know where you're getting it from. Thanks.
So I think you understand our concern. Do we have an out if we go down
We
this
do.
road further
Yep.
and say?
We have a 6-month notice to get out.
Rescind.
Yep. That's with all our towns.
Other questions? No?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Emergency management. Your turn. Good evening, sir.
Good evening to you.
Good. Did we ever get a budget from you on our template?
I believe so. You did.
We did?
I posted it.
Okay,
Thank you, by the way.
thank you.
A lot of new faces here. My name is Rick Roos. I'm the Emergency Management Director for the town.
First, before you go into what you need from us, I want to say, on behalf of the Finance Committee, we are extremely grateful for the work that you did this past year and you continue to do with our snow and ice and working with FEMA and MEMA and wherever else you have to work with to make sure that we get as much money back as we are due and we can get. I've been told by many different departments that you work countless hours to make sure that we get that. So Finance Committee definitely appreciates your hard work on that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It was very painful this year because it was a lot of basically appeals and other paperwork to try to get reimbursement for fences that were damaged, and we went through, I think, 3 different FEMA personnel as some people were rotated in and out during the process. So it dragged on for a little bit longer than I expected.
Well, we definitely appreciate your hard work. And what would you like for FY17?
All I can get. That's the standard answer I think everybody wants to give, but all humor aside, I'm just looking for, I'm asking for $6,000, and I'm going to break it down. I'm looking for $2,000 to do some emergency management supplies and repairs. That money is going to go to fixing a mobile generator that's right now out of service because it has a couple of blown solenoids and it needs to have a actual repair shop take a look at it and fix it up. It's going to go for some radio batteries. We have 21 portable radios, but the last time we bought batteries, we bought 8 of them back in 2008. The other batteries are considerably older and no longer take a charge. You can put them on the charger all day, you take them off, and 20 minutes later, you hear a distinctive sound of a radio that says, "I don't like this battery, it's dead." That kind of limits the usefulness. We do have some broken auxiliary police badges that have been handed back in by some of the people. The pins have been broken on the back. I have a bunch of those in the drawer, trying just to replace or repair those. Go back to the beginning over here. We're going to try to purchase a 20-foot Connex container. We've gotten some different prices. Forgive me that the month of February for me has been kind of a lost month. If you can't hear my voice, it comes and goes. I was out of the office basically the entire month of February. We've gotten some different prices on it, and we're also looking at someone who may be able to help underwrite the cost. So $2,500, may not come out that full price. But we have to plan worst case in case we do need to pay what the going rate is. Right now we have everything put into a 40-foot Connex container, and I can just about squeeze myself in to get some of the stuff out from the back, as long as I hold my breath.
Good thing you're so fit.
Yeah, it's a tight fit. We were at 227 Plymouth Street, which was the former school administration building, and we took a good portion of the building up on the first floor. We did just make sure that everything got into the Connex box so that we could get out of the building. And let's see, the final thing is, that's the thing that we do the most every year is we do a training session for the auxiliary police. This year, we're in the process of switching over to a new firearm. We have none of the new ammunition in, and the ammunition that we have aside anyway was bought a couple of years ago. Most of the money that's going to go for training, for ammunition is actually for duty rounds for the people that are going to be deployed on the streets. All the volunteers have been recently paying their own way for ammunition for training, which is helpful, but at the same time, it can be very expensive depending on the courses of fire that they're asked to do. I do it without complaint, but I know that some of the others just find it to be a little bit of a hardship when they're not being paid anything for it. And if I find you if I find you in a very giving mood, I'm looking to try to get an old pickup truck that I've talked to Mass Highway about to replace a vehicle that's no longer in our possession.
So you're working on surplus?
I'm absolutely working on the state surplus. I've worked with,
Connections there with the...
I've contacted a few people at Mass Highway who are looking to see what they no longer need. The problem it would come with, in John Deere yellow, so it would be very distinctive in town. Everyone would know who we are. And it would have an amber light on it, so we'd probably just replace the lenses with red or blue or take them off or just leave them as amber. I don't need to go too far, too fast, usually. I've gotten used to going slow in my little Ford Escape.
On the auxiliary police officers, so can you explain, or maybe, what exactly is the auxiliary police officers? What is their role?
The auxiliary police officers.
Why would somebody want to do that?
The auxiliary police officers are unpaid volunteers through the emergency management and through the police department. Right now, we have, I think, 12. We're authorized to 14 or 15. They are individuals. Some of them are campus police officers in colleges. Others, work for the sheriff's department. They volunteer their time on Fridays and Saturdays between 7 p.m. and midnight, sometimes later. They also do traffic control on the Memorial Day parade and some other road races and other events. But they act as an additional set of eyes and ears during, like I said, their listed hours. They go around checking the school buildings and other sites that have been proven to be sources of vandalism or just troublesome in the past. And like I said, they're a force multiplier. They don't save the town, labor costs. They're a force multiplier. They go out there and they just use their time and their talents to, because some of them want to become full-time officers. Others like just giving back to the town. Each one of them has to pay for their own gear, including their own firearm. They put forth their own training. The ammunition cost that we give to them is pretty minimal. It used to, once a year. And I'm very happy to have them when I need them. And the time that they spend in training pays off when they're called out to do whatever task the town requires them to do.
How many do we have currently?
Right now, I believe, and I'll have to double check my records, right now I believe it's at 12. There are also several that are just part-time special officers in town that come solely under the chief of police. We provide all the part-timers, whether they're part-time or auxiliary, with ammunition for their training purposes.
Are they Holbrook residents?
Some of them are, some of them are not. We mimic the civil service list, I should say area of restrictions, so they have to be within 15 miles of the town. We have lost some good people, some good applicants because they couldn't afford the cost of the academy, which is $2,500 per person. Then you add on to that the uniform and the firearm expenses, which could be another $1,500. You'd say to someone that you're going to be volunteering your time and spending $4,000, and a lot of people have said, thank you, I'm going to go to Abington or I'm going to go to Whitman, towns which provide the uniform and provide stipend opportunities, which we cannot presently provide.
Stipend opportunities such as?
More details. Some of the other towns use their special, their auxiliary officers to do time at hospitals, doing prisoner watches or other things, right, which right now, being a small town, there isn't that much work that everybody could do all at the same time.
So they're eligible, as far as auxiliary officers, they'll be eligible for dispatchers, but are they at the end of the list for, not dispatchers?
For details?
For details. But they're at the end of the list for details? Is that how-
The auxiliary right now are not, they work their way to become specials based on.
So it goes auxiliary, then special,
Yeah.
then regular, or?
Correct.
Okay.
Although you can become a full-time officer, obviously based on civil
Right,
service.
right.
The auxiliary police is where most of them get their start so that they can learn the town, learn the geography, learn how the full-time officers work so that they're not just showing up and without knowing how the town functions, knowing the town geography. There's nothing worse than having to send a search team to find somebody who's lost in the Grove. So when you find, you know,
Just look for my house, it gets you right out.
yeah, so.
You're on the fringes.
Everybody trains and they learn the geography and they learn how everybody acts and so they become a known quantity and their training and their qualifications are what the chief expects them to be able to do. Then they get promoted to become specials and they can work details and every now and then a shift covering a vacation or a sick call.
Any other questions? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it. Have a good night.
Kevin, can I ask a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you guys do rock, paper, scissors at the back of the room to figure out
You
who's
guys
gonna
figure
go
it
first.
out. No, you're all set, sir. Let's go back to dispatch. Is there a new request? Because the last one I had was from February. Is there a new one given out tonight? Because my
Yes.
math on mine is wrong.
Yeah, there's a new one given out tonight that's level funded everything except for the expenses,
Never mind, then
the $4,790.
I got all the information I wasn't here, so you're all set. Thanks.
Can you send this electronically?
Thank you. I had a feeling there was something, there's no way I could have missed that. That'd be me.
We try to hide things from you.
I'm sorry, what?
We try to hide things from you.
Yeah.
So you
Good
can ask
evening.
Good evening.
a Question
How do you want me to start? Just,
from the beginning.
The floor is yours, sir.
okay, this year's budget, I have an increase of 2.97. The first line item will be contractual with me for 2570. The second one for sergeants, we had a sergeant retire in October. We have an acting sergeant now. They're going to appoint a new sergeant probably 4 Marches out. He's coming in as a sergeant with a master's degree. The sergeant on the left didn't have any degree. And also one sergeant is going from P3 to P4. So that reflects the cost of all that plus 2% contractual raise. And then permanent men salaries, 2% contractual raise, plus half the money for a school resource officer. The next line item is secretary. I want to make her an administrative assistant. Her job description has changed dramatically. She's in the process, we're in the process right now of going for accreditation, which is a huge undertaking, and she's going to be a big part of that. It's going to be revamping our whole system. We've already got the new rules and regulations out. We're going to change every policy procedure. It's going to take almost 2 years to do this. And once we get accredited, it's going to lower our insurance rating.
So we not currently accredited now? Is this a new thing in the
We're not accredited.
industry, or what is?
There's 2 types of accreditation. There's CALIA, which is nationwide, and there's mass accreditation, which is statewide. Right now, in the state of Massachusetts, it goes from, the first step is self-assessment, which we're in that now. Then it goes to credited, then it goes to accreditation. In self-assessment right now, there's probably 150 towns. Accredited, maybe 20 towns. Accreditation, probably 60. The towns that are accredited around us are Abington, Stoughton, and Randolph. Currently, no other town around us. Weymouth's in a self-assessment right now, so it's a huge undertaking. I've taken the courses. It'd be a great thing for the town because it puts a positive light on the police and it lowers their insurance rating. And a lot of times, if a lawyer's going to come to a lawsuit against a town, he looks at it and says the town's accredited, it kind of takes a lot out of them, so.
Well, in theory, hopefully through that process too, we'll find efficiencies or better ways to do it, policies and procedures so that
Right,
we can improve. It's not
It's
just,
it's all mandated by the state. Once you feel you're ready, they do a mock accreditation. They send a mock team in, and 80% of it's policy procedures, 20% of it's facilities and equipment. So if you pass the mock assessment, then they'll schedule the real assessment. They only do assessments twice a year, May and September. And it's like a 5-man team that does it, and so it's really a lot of work. I mean, we did the first part of it, just getting the new rules and regulations out. We updated them. They haven't updated since '97, so.
and so you believe that the current secretary position would be replaced by an administrative assistant position?
Yeah, she's gonna,
And that description aligns, that's still a union position, it's
Yes.
just a difference in the union and...
all the other departments have their secretaries, administrative assistant, just bringing her in line with them. But she's taking on a huge undertaking too. I mean, it's gonna be a lot of work for everybody. But again, at the end, it brings the town up to standard and puts us in a good spotlight. The next thing is overtime. I tried to increase overtime by $15,000. The 2010 right now isn't cutting it. We've been killed this year. We had 2 men out for 6 months. We had another guy out in FMLA. We had another sergeant retire. It's been a bad year for us. I'm just trying to keep 3 guys on the road. It's almost becoming impossible. But the guys are back now from OJI. The guys back from FMLA. We're at full staffing right now. God forbid anything else happens. I mean, like,
When does the new officer start that was transferring over? How long does that take?
he's supposed to start March 14th.
Okay.
But, you know, civil service. We sent the
So
paperwork.
we're waiting on them to do something?
We
All
sent the
right. So
paperwork,
April.
we sent the paperwork into civil service, and they said that the Avon chief couldn't sign it. It had to be the Avon Board of Chairman of Selectmen. They sent it back to Avon. They're trying to track him down to get him to sign it. They tried today, they're gonna try again tomorrow. Quicker we get him in there. He qualified with his firearm today, so he's all set to go, so we're looking for the 14th.
Okay.
And sick leave buyback is
Well,
gonna
hold
be...
on, just to stick on overtime then. So do you think that with all these people being able to come back, that you're gonna be able to squeeze your way through the end of the year without needing anything, or you think you
Oh,
might
I'm
need a
gonna
little something?
I'm gonna need something.
You're gonna need something?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I'm hurting. I've already,
Yeah,
last year I made some decisions because I knew it was going to be a tough year. We actually got rid of a car we shouldn't have got rid of. We had to get rid of it because to save money. I traded in our Expedition and they gave me $8,500 with it. And that's usually they only give us like $2,500. I knew I was going to be hurting, so I said, time to do it now. General expense, I've cut it off. Everything except for emergency funding right now. I mean, I had to buy tires for 1 car. We've had 2 cars break down, but we were under a warranty. We got a brand new transmission, we got a brand new rear end, and thank God it was under warranty. But the K9 car is being held together with glue right now. That's the car that's being replaced this year. As long as that car makes it, you know, that thing breaks down every other day, so.
so
It's
that's gonna be replaced in like June or July?
July, yep.
July 1st kind of
Yeah.
thing?
Oh, yeah. We're gonna order, we try to do 2 cars every year because they don't last long. Believe me.
Right.
Even the new cars, I mean, the 2 Chevys we have, the best thing about them is it's 100,000 miles bumper to bumper. The Fords, they're not like that. The Chevys are a lot better, but you can't get the Chevys off. We're trying to get a Tahoe this year too, so we get the good warranty with it, but it's tough. I mean, they take a beating. They're always, it's the alternator, the water pump, the battery, the brakes, tires. I mean, it
You
adds
get the
up.
guys to go slow when they're
You're gonna just wave at people. Please stop. Sorry.
See, the good thing is the motorcycle needs no repairs. That thing's just self-sufficient. It's cost us nothing.
Good luck.
Chief, regarding OT for FY16.
Yep.
If you're running hot, how hot? 20 grand, 30 grand,
36 right now.
36, right now?
Yeah, but I'm trying to push it down every week. I'm trying to cut everything out. And like this week with the missing woman, and that was a bad week. It just, yeah, I get one step forward and three back, you know? I just can't win.
So, so you're 36 hot right now, but, and that's you projecting out through the end of the year?
End of the year.
For the end of the year, you think that,
Yeah, that's projected
is
out.
that using this 8,500?
That's already been taken off.
That's what I'm saying, you've already taken that into account, so
Yeah,
you're,
Yep.
okay. So yeah, just keep us apprised, obviously, I imagine you have something already submitted for town meeting warrant.
Yes, I'm to transfer the money from the
Yeah.
cruiser account over.
Well, to transfer money from the cruiser, and then also you should have a placeholder one that just is to fund any, a supplemental appropriation.
Okay.
That way to supplemental appropriate or transfer, that way it allows us, if we get to town meeting and there's money to transfer, and we know a harder number.
Okay.
Because we always like town meeting to be the ones, you know, we can always pull it back if we find out you don't need it or there's something else we can do. We'd rather have town meeting be the one saying, yes, take the money from this account and move it over here, as opposed to us in June and July having to do that. So you definitely want a placeholder on there.
Getting the lateral transfer saved us a chunk of money. I tried to get another one, but I had one guy almost convinced and Weymouth grabbed him up, so it's tough to get them, you know. But the one we got, it's gonna work out great. He's a great kid. He's been in the Department of Avon since 2008, done very well over there, so.
Good.
So the sick leave buyback is gonna go down this July. I'll finish off one officer and I'll start another guy and have him for 3 years. General expense is gonna stay the same, cruiser will stay the same, and medical will stay the same.
And is the medical pay, that's the annual,
OGI bills.
oh, that's the OJ, wait, that's your deductible?
That's what we pay after it goes through Cooking Company for prescriptions for our sergeant that had the OGI incident.
So that's not the deductible, that's the cost of,
That's the cost we pay for all the bills that come to
for
us.
the actual bill, for the
Actual bills.
patient's portion of the deductibles or whatnot, we pay that portion. Okay. So it's not the OJI, I just want to be clear. There's a $10,000 OJI, I think it's 10,000, OJI deductible that we have to pay in our other insurance line item.
Right.
So the
This
same
is
numbers,
for-
but this is the actual.
This is the actual money.
Smaller bills that just
Yeah.
add up to
Oh,
$10,000.
believe me, they add up quickly. Medical bills are huge.
And you're budgeting for 2 cruisers,
2 cruises, yep.
2 pieces of equipment. Questions?
Is it the two, probably bring up an old question, I apologize. 80,000, because they don't meet the current standard for the capital planning, correct?
5 years. Yep.
They don't last.
No, I know they don't, oh, I'm not.
That's the reason that they're in the
Nothing to do with you, I'm talking about the actual.
operational
policies.
budget versus a submitted through the capital
I
budget.
don't begrudge the 83, I'm saying, I always want to try to get it over there.
Yeah, Maybe
Because
we
it's
should,
such a big purchase.
maybe we should change that capital plan.
Someone should come up with an idea.
Somebody should come up with that, yeah. That's a different.
Chief, regarding overtime, when you're fully staffed, what's your run rate on overtime?
We have, fully staffed is 4 guys on a shift. We'll go down to 3. Since July 1st last year till now, 465 shifts have gone unfilled because I've had enough staffing. What happens is when someone's out, say someone takes a vacation day, now there's 3 guys working, we get a prisoner. Dedham's full, they won't take him. We gotta hold him all weekend. Now I gotta pay to watch this guy all weekend. We had a chief's meeting with the sheriff, and it was a mutual problem through all the communities. And what they want to do is basically, the Plymouth jail is never full. Dedham jail is always full. What they want to do is transfer prisoners from here down to there, opening up this for communities up here to fill that up. Because in Plymouth County currently, no police departments hold their prisoners. They all go to Plymouth. So if you arrest someone, they're going to be there overnight, they transport them to Plymouth. We do that on weekends here, but they're always full. They're always, they don't take anybody that's been drinking, on drugs, or has a medical condition. So we're basically stuck with them. And then
That's not good sheriff's doing that? I thought our sheriff loved us.
Oh, no, he's trying to make this move. He really seriously said he was gonna open those beds up so we could just pick them up and drop them off there. That way they take them to court and everything. It's a huge liability for the town to watch someone in a cell with all the things going on.
And is there no opportunity for, when that does happen, and say that, you know, Dedham's full?
Yeah.
But we've got one prisoner, and Braintree's got one prisoner, Braintree's got 4 prisoners, or Randolph's got 4 prisoners, that we can't mutually aid and say, you watch this prisoner, we'll pick him back up on Monday?
They won't do that, no. They'll do it, the only time they'll ever do that, if we're full,
Yeah.
we're at maximum capacity, they'll take our overflow. The same thing, if they're full, we'll take their overflow. But other than that, they won't watch our, it's such a liability. It really, it's.
Now, does it have to be an officer?
Yeah.
Or what about these auxiliary, or a matron?
It'd be a
or-
union issue. They'd file the grievance right away.
No.
Believe me, we try to bail, I plead with the bail commissioner to bail them for $40. Sometimes they just say they can't do it. I mean, it doesn't help that the court is supposed to be open until 4 o'clock, and we say if we arrest them at 2 o'clock, and a lot of times they'll say, we're not taking anybody. And we're stuck with them, because they're backed up. The system is pretty, there's so much going on, but if the Dedham can work that out, that'll be a huge help for everybody. I mean, every town around is complaining about this.
But it sounds like you just had a meeting on that, so there's,
Yeah.
might be something that there's being looked at.
He said he was gonna
so-
look into it and work on it, so he's,
Yeah, so I
we
will
all
make sure my
expressed our
comments
concern.
was meant in jest about.
No, no,
the-
I know, I know.
Sheriff. He has done, his department has done great things for the town of Millbrook, including the room that we're in right here, so.
Another question about overtime, Chief. I harp on overtime a lot because it's such a big portion of the budget. But anyways, even if you were fully staffed, you would still require maybe 50% of that overtime, maybe $100,000 a year if you were fully staffed for an entire year because of these situations. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, but anything go wrong, someone get injured, someone calls out sick, someone's on vacation, they gotta go to in-service training, it just adds up.
Right, but see, setting the injuries aside for a second, which is sort of a big unknown.
Right.
But outside of that, you still have, as you said, vacations and sick days, so you could have that happen. I think it'd be an interesting thing to kind of look at is say, excluding, you know, it's not an easy process, but maybe an administrative assistant can do it, excluding the injury shifts that were missed. If that injury wasn't there, how many shifts would have gone unfilled? Or how many shifts, not unfilled, I'm sorry, how many overtime shifts did we have to call in excluding that injury? So, you know, say you had 4, and then you had somebody on vacation, and then you had somebody calling sick,
Right.
in your mind, hey, I had to fill that with normal, without it being an injury. So that's a.
Well, I do track that.
That's a sick overtime versus,
didn't
I
bring all those
had an in-service training that I couldn't get into another one, so I was in in-service training overtime. So I think that's helpful for us to kind of understand what's injury versus scheduling, because then as we looked at a couple years ago, does it make sense actually, I think we did, to actually increase the number of officers from 20 to 21 maybe or somewhere. Because it made sense to, hey, by adding this other one, yes, you're gonna have additional costs and fringe benefits, but you're actually gonna save on your overtime, because by adding that person, you know, barring an injury,
Right.
because you're gonna be able to cover more sick and, vacations, that kind of thing. And do you try to limit, or do you limit 2 people on vacation at the same time?
I try to, when I get close to the end of the year, I try to do that. I mean, if the guys got so many vacation days, if I limited it, it'd be impossible to manage. I mean, what's happening now is a transition. A lot of the top people are going off, and the lower people are coming in with minimal vacation days and stuff like that. So it's really, in the next few years, is a huge transition. And like when we do in-service, in-service usually starts in October and ends in April. What I try to do is I limit, nobody from the same shift can go to in-service together. Different shifts, and it's always when they, say if someone's working 4 to 12, we call it flex down. They'll go down to in-service and their shift goes unfilled. So there's no, it's a while till someone takes a vacation day, and that costs money, but. So basically, we have a guy in service this week, he's on the 8 to 4 shift, his shift will go unfilled all week long, because we're stacked on this shift right now. It's the other shifts we're hurting on, like midnight. Midnights is, they're down to 2 guys, so it's, I mean,
Tough.
it is, it's just,
Other questions?
I guess I'll wrap with, I thought the last time we added officers, part of the intent was to reduce overtime, yet overtime just continues to go.
I think what the problem with is retirements, the last couple of years, I mean, it's tough when they retire and you can't fill someone. Right now, if we hire someone, the next academy is August 1st. So they'll go in the academy August 1st and probably won't even graduate till almost January. So you can't win. I mean, civil service it's so slow to do anything. And even if we got the list come out, we're doing the background checks now. There's an academy in April, but I'm not gonna make it because they have to do medical, psychological. It's a lot of work. You just can't pick someone off the street and hire them. They just,
Yeah, we don't want you to do that.
no.
Yeah, maybe.
But lateral's the way to go. Believe me, like,
Yes, that's the best thing.
it's the best way. It's guy's trained, he can rid off, we know who he is, but they're tough to get because everyone's pulling now.
Can you offer like a signing bonus for somebody, or is that illegal, or?
I think, yeah. In the contract right now, what this town is, when you come in as a lateral, you come in with how many years you have for your step.
Right.
So, but like I said, I had that guy from Weymouth, well, he went to Weymouth. Almost sure he was gonna come, and Weymouth offered more, and
Well, I just look at, as you say, there's all these costs involved that, you send them to the academy and all these, that if you said, we can give you a $5,000 payment for a lateral transfer,
right.
because we're not paying $20,000 in overtime and all those training costs, that seems like a no-brainer to me, but I don't know if you can.
I don't know if it's legal.
I don't know if it's legal. Right, I mean, but something maybe you want to bring it with a selectman, and maybe it's something you can write into the contract, because from their standpoint, well, maybe they won't like that. I mean, they're getting a trained officer in and faster as opposed to, running unmanned and all that kind of stuff, so. I don't know. Just a thought.
Well,
They happen sometimes.
They do that all the time in the military. You give them an incentive, and also the VA does the same thing. If they're doing lateral transfer from one location to another, to entice that person, you just give them an incentive for locality and so on and so forth, and then you make the difference.
Yeah, their pay scales are different in the military.
Much different.
And we have to balance our budget, they don't.
Yeah, federal government.
Go get Mo when you went out.
Anything else for police?
Chief, in the salaries, is there the union contracts, the raises, they're all already in there?
Yes,
Okay,
2%, yep.
2%.
Yep.
I guess one last thing, the school resource officer,
Oh,
since we brought it up last week.
I thought of that a minute ago, and then I forgot it.
Bring it up again. Well, how much are you budgeting for the school resource officer? Is it
26.5.
26.5? Okay.
I think they had it 27.5 on the school.
Well, the school's actually getting it cheaper than that because
Oh,
they currently budget for what they call a school attendance officer. I'm not sure the exact figure, but when a school resource officer comes in, he takes over that responsibility and eliminates that. I knew years ago it was like $2,500, but I'm not really sure how much it is now.
So it's a small stipend that they're
Yeah.
paying to somebody for that activity that
It's
then
paid,
would go away.
I think Ralph Colarusso does it.
Okay.
He's the one that's the school attendance officer.
hey, Kevin. And the whole thing is new.
27,000, right, because they're not factoring in, like he says, there's a,
Wow.
whatever, a couple $1,000 savings because some of those duties will be offset.
Right.
Will that resource officer be somebody who's currently on the shift? Do you have to hire somebody, or?
We had to hire someone new, but they wouldn't be the one going there. The agreement with the school was, and it's part written in the law, that the school has a 50% stake in it. So we would have to open it up with resumes, have an interview process, and then hire someone from currently working. They have to be trained too. I have a couple people that are interested, they're really good in the schools, they go to the schools all the time now, but, I mean,
So one of the big things last week was it's a mandate, we have to do it. And have to do it and mandate to me are two different things, because mandate means we're legally required to do it. Every chief in the law list I'm looking at, Part 1, Title 12, Chapter 71, Section 37P, School Resource Officers. Every chief, Section B, every chief of police in consultation with the superintendent and subject to appropriation shall assign at least one school resource officer to serve the city, town, Commonwealth Charter School, regional, and that's about it, because then it says, it talks about the regional and how a regional would work. Section E, notwithstanding subsection B, if the chief of police, in consultation with the superintendent, determines that there are not sufficient resources, money, to assign a school resource officer to serve the city, town, regional school district, or county agricultural school, the chief of police shall consult with the Department of State Police to ensure that a school resource officer is assigned, subject to appropriation. So I just think that it's, yes, it's a good thing. I think we've spoken on this committee, I know, for 5 years about trying to get a school resource officer in there, and we ended up getting detectives instead of that, because that's what was able to be funded at that time. But I do think that, I just don't know how the financial situation that we're in today, looking at the numbers, and we're not putting a budget out there yet, but we had this discussion last week, and I'll have with the directors and chiefs that are in the room tonight. The town doesn't have a lot of money available this year, for several reasons, and health insurance, retirement being two big cost drivers. When you factor in all of the maxing out the increase 2.5%, maxing out, our local receipts and all of the revenues, maxing out state aid, the town ends up with roughly $800,000 to $900,000 in available new money of what we had last year. $400,000 of that is taken up by mandatory increases, health insurance, other insurance, retirement, which leaves you with $400,000 or $500,000, somewhere in that neighborhood, which is roughly 2% over what the operational budget was last year for the operational departments. So that being said, it's very difficult to fund new initiatives like a school resource officer, like initiatives that the school department has, and like other departments have in the town. We've had some expansion here in the costs within town hall, so on and so forth. So it makes it difficult. So one statement that I made last week, and the committee didn't have to say anything on it, because like I say, it's just an advisement from somebody that's looking at the numbers, that 2% is a pretty hard number for what's available. Now, what the committee ends up recommending and what town meeting ultimately recommends can be two very different things. And how money shifted, and just because somebody was at something last year doesn't mean that the recommendation will be to that, or 2+ more than that, or it might be 10% less. I don't know, because there might be a decision that this is an important initiative and we'll sacrifice something else to do this. But I would keep in your mind that 2%, you might be, and especially with the schools with the bigger budget, we said this, but you might be asked that, that's what you might be getting. So if you had to prioritize, start to think about that, and we've been through this process before, so that when we, recommend something in a couple weeks or put out some drafts out there in a couple weeks, that you're kind of already prepared and saying, all right, I was prepared if they did this, then I know this is what I'm going to have to sacrifice and not be able to do, and this is a service that either we won't be able to take anew, or that I'll have to actually reduce from a service that we provided last year. So just kind of giving you a heads up on that, so you can start to kind of let that marinate and take it from there. Good on that? All right. Any questions for us at this point?
Nope.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We saved the best for last?
Thanks for the vote of confidence. I hope so.
It's going to be tough to be level funded from the dispatch.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be able to do quite that good. I apologize.
As long as you're close.
Good evening. How's everybody?
Good, and you?
Good.
How you doing?
So I know you've all received these copies electronically. Basically, the fire department and EMT budgets that were presented are basically level services budgets as was requested. There's a few, one or two very minor things that were positive. The radio repeater came off that was in this current FY budget, which was helpful. And the rest of the budget is basically just contractual obligations and experience-based best projections.
There's a couple of big changes in here. I guess we'll go to one of the big ones first, maybe the biggest dollar amount. Overtime, you're asking for $410,000 for FY17, up from $319 in FY16.
Yeah, so I can speak to that. For the committee members, and I think this will come back to Mr. Chairman. When I took over Chief O'Brien, the method I used to estimate to propose the overall fire department budget was I did a retrospective on the previous 5 years' history, overtime history, and plugged in the worst case scenario. So that's where that $410,000 figure came from. That was the worst case scenario, which going back occurred in FY11. Since then, we've had fortunately better experiences, but.
Average over that period?
An average, I don't have an average, but 15 was 386, round numbers okay?
Yep.
386, 389 was 14, 332 was 13, 311 was 12, and then again 410 was the year before that. So that's just how I prepared the budget. Obviously, the past experience indicates the volatility that both the fire and police department experience with overtime.
365 is the average.
Thank you.
Any other questions on overtime?
365, using the budget, brings it down to 2%. Just throw it out there as a number, just, you were talking 2%, improvement at 9, he's at 2%.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's some other nice savings that we're seeing in your budget. So unused, or sick leave, buyback, unused sick leave, that you're, whatever that, is that one person, two person that was getting that this year? 36,000.
That was 2 people. Yeah.
And they're both gone. This is the last year of payments for them.
Correct.
So that's a nice decrease there, which offsets some of the other line items that have to change. Other personnel services, that's a pretty big jump, more than doubling. What is other personnel services?
That's a specialty positions, department mechanic, fire alarm.
Stipends kind of thing?
Exactly, specialty.
So why is it doubling?
To be honest with you, I was getting a handle on that. From what I understand, at the end of Chief O'Brien's tenure, some of those things that used to be found in the other personal services budget were rolled into the salaries line items as well. So when I took over, there was a figure of 5,000 in there. The past 2 years' experience has helped me get that number to what you see in front of you now. So
it's not we're paying necessarily additional people or additional monies.
No.
It's just transferring from the salary line item to the personnel service.
exactly, these positions, these specialty positions have been in existence for well over a decade. I believe all of them. So it's not a new cost, it's just being reflected in a different line item.
Medical payments, is that similar?
Medical payments, we've had, there's yearly physicals that the department members are required to take part in for medical surveillance. Those costs have been very stable. We did receive a correspondence that the prices were going up. That's the main driver behind the increase for that line item.
Is it different from regular annual physicals? We can't piggyback on the regular physical, just pay an additional deductible or something? Or?
They are different. They're specialized. It's an occupational.
Just trying.
Yeah.
No vehicle? You gonna get a horse and buggy this year or something? Or?
No, that's the chief's car. It's in good condition, and it was this current fiscal year is the last year of the lease purchase agreement. So.
How long do we?
We'll try. We'll try.
Well, now you get, you're getting those moments, the 100,000 mile bumper to bumper, right? That's the,
Yeah,
I learned today from the other chief. Replacing equipment is down 5,000.
again, that's,
Was it up? It was actually.
that's
up
correct.
significantly last year and then.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. That was the radio repeater, that's the main fire department radio transmitter that was, this year's, the FY16 budget was increased specifically for that purpose. That has been completed, so we reduced that replace equipment line item
Can we
down.
reduce it back down to closer to where it was the year before?
Well, the other, of course,
Let me back up. How much did we budget for that radio repeater? Was it 10,000? At the special town meeting, I thought we budgeted an additional 10,000 for the radio repeater.
yeah, I can look it up specifically if you'd like, but that, to my recollection, that's in the,
That sounds right to me.
yeah, it looks like just under 9,000, between 8 and 9,000.
So there's a need for an additional, so you take, I'll use the easy number, take 8 off, it puts you back down to 12, now you're going up to 15.
Well,
There's,
if we had gone from, I shouldn't have closed it, but if we had gone from 11 to 12, say, which was probably the FY 15, go up, a couple thousand just for the routine cost of equipment increase, the routine cost of living increases. That was just where I came to the $15,000 estimate.
do you know that FY 16's, or this 2015's cost of living adjustment is minus 0.22%? So should we actually decrease it by the cost of living? I love it people say that. I'm just, we look at these contracts and it's all 2% for cost of living, 2% for cost of living, and yeah, it's down 0.22%.
My cost. Sorry.
It's, it's.
I'm not saying also you get the numbers, I'm just
That's the
saying.
published number, that's actually why state aid, the chapter 70 for schools actually, so.
Wow.
Yeah, my father didn't get a raise for
Yeah, there's no
Social
raise for,
Security.
yeah, at least, I mean, they didn't go, it's like Social Security, it didn't go down, they left it
Right.
flat,
Yep.
but the cost of living is actually a negative number. But anyway, I'm just.
Yeah, and I don't
So
know
that's it's a fluid number, it's just general, you have expenses that are going up, you need more supplies.
correct.
Just wanna make sure there wasn't, we needed another radio that's $3,000 or something.
No, I mean, that generally is used to replace the equipment that either wears out, becomes obsolete, is defective. Just by way of example, we've had our multi-gas meters lately have been using a lot of the sensors that actually sense for things like methane, carbon monoxide, things like that. It's becoming harder and harder to find those particular sensors that get replaced in those units because the main unit itself is, aging as well. So those are the sorts of things that kind of creep, even though I take your point that overall, the cost of living may be going down. I wish I were seeing some that would help considerably.
Anything else on the fire budget? And we'll move on to EMS.
Just in short, the
Yep.
budget is increasing by how much for FY 17 year over year?
The total request?
Total, yeah.
The total request is 82,667.
Okay.
82,667, which is 4%.
4%.
But that was the big thing there was it was using our historical worst case for overtime, which is 410, and the average is 360, what did I say? Anybody? I got it.
365.
Yeah. Yes, 365. Call it 366. It's 3656, so.
What's your run rate for this year?
For overtime, I'm not sure exactly at the moment. I just checked it this afternoon. We're currently at 225.
Is that what you're targeting to spend?
No,
or
that's
how
what
much you
that's what we
spent
spent, yeah, 2 days.
25 and you're 2/3 of the way through the year, so you're right in line with your 330, 390.
But as, we unfortunately, not to get off the FY17 discussion, we unfortunately did have a line of duty injury last week, so that's gonna be something to watch as the rest of this fiscal year closes out.
Are you fully staffed?
Yes.
And do you anticipate any retirees within the next 12 to 18 months?
I don't. I haven't had any indication that that's the case, but we do have some members that are basically at retirement age, so that's always another unknown. And of course, that's really a personal, as we all know, it's a personal decision, and it just comes upon us when it comes upon us.
I just, well, you were in the room, but I would look to, I think, both you and the police chief to maybe work with to try to add some language to the contract to allow for these signing / one-time / some way to incentivize these lateral transfers. Because I think that, you had a lateral transfer last year, didn't you, or this year?
We didn't, our most recent hire wasn't a lateral transfer, however, they came to us fully trained, so it was, you know, from a financial standpoint, it was close to equivalent. So, and we've been pretty lucky with that, historically, over the past 5 years or so, as far as hires. We've been doing pretty well as far as, getting interested candidates that have experience and training already, so we'll just hope that the trend continues.
I think both departments do a great job retaining those that actually come on board, so I think that shows a lot for those that are going through that, doing that process of investigating the people and hiring the people, are doing a good job if they're sticking with us, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, Chief, I have a question. Do you have a mandatory retirement age for firemen? Is that?
The state of Massachusetts does through the civil service statute, 65 years old.
Oh, okay. Huh. I think it would be like pilots, you know.
Is that for police and fire?
That's for police and fire.
Yes. Is that for dispatchers too? Not yet? You want that? You want the
What's it for the finance committee, each one? 102.
That's how
I just had for clarification, the administrative assistant that's in your salaries, is that different than the fire chief secretary?
No, that is the same, that's the same thing. The line item, I don't think the name of the line item was changed back when the title changed, but that's the same, that's one person, one position.
So is the administrative assistant salary versus, that's higher than what's the?
Yes, that's because the administrative assistant salary is split between the EMT account and the EMT department and the fire department, because a large percentage or certain percentage of her workload is ambulance billing preparation and things of that nature.
Other questions on fire? All right. EMT?
EMT, again,
I think for some, we have some new members, so we don't have employees that specifically do EMT work. They are the same people that do the fire work, the firefighters, and they also do EMT. It's just two separate budgets for an accounting purpose. So it's the same people. We don't have, you know, this isn't one, as listed here, 16 firefighters / EMTs. They're the same firefighter EMTs that are paid on the other one. It's just a portion of their pays.
thank you.
Go from there.
That's pretty much it. This is a level service for that. The chairman did all my work for me and explained that right on task.
We got a couple increases.
I do, and I can, specifically, EMT and salaries and overtime, again, that's just basically routine increases that coincide with collective bargaining agreements. More specifically, the EMT expenses line item, you'll see went up $20,000. The main driver behind this is the state of Massachusetts has at this point, they've proposed or included in the statewide treatment protocols an indication that IV pumps will be required by 2017. So those are not currently, that's not currently standard equipment on the ambulances. This is there isn't, at present, they haven't finalized any of the regulations, so this is just an estimate. We technically have 3 ambulances, 2 transporting ambulances, 1 Class 5 ambulance, which is a paramedic fire engine, and you need a spare. So we estimated $5,000 per IV pump for 4 IV pumps. That's where the $20,000 for the expenses comes from.
So that is and that's a specific one-time expense you expect that the next year?
Correct. I'd put them in the same category, generally speaking, as the cardiac monitors. I'd expect they'd probably have a useful lifespan of about 10 years or so, and then they'd become either functionally obsolete, difficult to find parts like we were talking about with the combustible gas sensors, things of that nature. So that's the real drivers for the increase in the EMT budget.
Questions on the EMT budget?
When will this happen now? When was this, Chief?
So right now, what happened was the state of Massachusetts put out some correspondence. They've been having some meetings, and they've put out in the existing today treatment protocols that IV pumps will be required as standard equipment in 2017. That puts us in a position to try to get ahead of budgeting for it, as I reported earlier. Unfortunately, they haven't told us exactly what's going to be required, and it's still, fluid to a good extent as far as what the actual nuts and bolts of that regulation will turn out to be. So I wish I had more information for you, but until they give it to us, we're kind of just.
Is it gonna include some training with that we're gonna have to pay for too, or?
Most likely there will be some training that's required as well. And again, I mean, that's going to have to be a flexible number at the moment because they haven't been able to give us any definitive.
What exactly you have to purchase? Thank you.
So Chief, the IV pumps will be about $25,000. That's the difference between the 61.5 I see here and the 85 in the top part of the budget.
Yeah, but that's not every expense. So like he's had 65, so we've been budgeting 65. So he's adding leaving the 65 alone as the base, and then adding 20,000, 5,000 times 4 for each IV pump.
For the IV pumps, okay.
Yeah. So leaving the base at 65 doesn't have that cost of living increase on that 65.
Well, it's negative, apparently.
It's negative. So when you put the two together, you get closer to that. Closer to the
I
negative.
can almost certainly tell you, it's probably not negative with medical supplies.
And as I say, medical is not the negative, that's the hard part. Anything else for Chief?
Do we do the public school building? No, the
Oh, the public safety building, yes, I'm sorry, the public safety building.
Yep. Again, just, really pretty much just routine increases. Salary is, that's a wage and personnel position, part-time. Utilities and expenses, just a small nominal increase. And I did include in this, after consultation with the police chief, a PSB capital maintenance, a proposal for a capital maintenance line item. The public safety building actually celebrated its 10th anniversary in the fall of being in service. I know that's hard for all of us to believe, myself included, but it's starting to show some of the things that a 10-year-old building that's being utilized 24 hours a day for, emergency services, starting to show some wear and tear. So this was just to, get the ball rolling for, there are some things certainly that we're going to start to see as far as capital needs and replacement needs, water heaters, circulator pumps, paint, Yeah, I mean, pretty much runs the gamut of the typical things you would expect to see for maintenance needs for an aging building, so.
Questions, thoughts, comments?
I do have a question. Utilities and expenses. I would imagine gas prices year over year are down.
Well, diesel for the trucks and,
So gasoline, diesel comes out of the Public Works Department. Natural gas, electricity,
Yeah, not so much.
that comes out of the Public Safety Building, utilities and expense line item. We're hoping that there'll be some stabilization in that thanks to the recent townwide electrical agreement that was put in place a few months ago. So again, experience-based. If you have a very hot summer, the air conditioners run more, you get higher electric bills, you know, that can offset. It has a potential to offset any gains you might see in a rate reduction if you happen to use more electricity that year. Same thing with cold winters. This winter fortunately has been somewhat on the mild side, so we may see some positive movement in the gas bill comparatively speaking, but again.
On the capital maintenance, I don't disagree with you that a 10-year-old building shows its wear, and I think that we want to make sure that we stay ahead of those issues and that they are maintenance issues and not becoming emergency repair and replacement issues. But I wonder if an article is a town meeting article is a better way with specific projects and items in mind that can fund an article specifically for specific tasks. You know, when those are done, any money that's left over gets closed out, come back, ask again for whatever the next series of projects are. It doesn't currently meet the limits for capital planning, so it wouldn't technically go to capital planning, but then at least you have, you know, capital planning can weigh in on it as understanding that, you know, it's not their official vote necessarily as a part of a capital plan, but understanding that these are important things, and if it was high enough, we would approve it, or maybe say, you know, if it wasn't, we wouldn't, and then that gives us in town meeting some direction. But I think that might be a better way to go about true capital replacement as opposed to the standard maintenance that I know your individual does on a regular basis. Kind of situation.
And I don't disagree. It was more, you know, there are a bunch of different alternative ways to approach this. I really, the real intent of showing that on there was really just to be transparent and say the building's 10 years old,
And now might be the time to put it on the town meeting warrant to, you know, move that process forward, because if you don't do it now, you're waiting at least 6 months and probably a year till you put it on next year, and then, you know, you gotta wait another 4 months before you can actually spend that money. So I would say that you're better off, you know, coming up with the list of those projects, some budgeting for what they are, and, you know, doing a real cost analysis to know what you want to undertake, but then have a plan to say, these are some of the smaller projects and whatnot we want to undertake, you know, next year. I know there's obviously a lot of work going on in this building, and so I think that you have a lot of resources to be able to do some cost analysis and help you out in terms of figuring out, you want to project X, Y, Z, what are they going to cost us? What should we budget for them? But I would say sooner rather than later.
Very good.
I don't know how we'll pay for it, but ask for it.
So Chief, your fire budget was 4%, the EMS 10% over year, this one 18% year over year. So obviously in a world of 2%, 2.5% increases, you need a plan B.
Yeah, well, and I understand. I mean, as many of the committee members know, I've been coming to the Finance Committee meetings for years now. I just feel a responsibility, and I know the other department heads are in the same boat, just to bring it to you, you know, in the best case scenario, you know, if everything were all sugar and roses. But I'm fully aware of the realities of the financial abilities of the town, and, you know, I just try to give you as much information as possible in a pretty logic, in as logical a format as I can, so that, you know, you have the information in front of you, because I know these decisions aren't easy from watching this for years and years.
Thank you.
Other questions? Did I miss any other budgets?
No? You're doing a great job.
Oh, I missed that last one. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so just to update, we have a couple of issues. One, actually, the first thing, we want to approve our minutes of our prior 2 meetings, and the dates of those. We want to approve the minutes of our
2/1
February 1st
and 2/2/2/20.
and February 22nd
Oh, I
meetings.
emailed it to you. Oh, you have.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Okay, those are passed. Good, that's done. Nothing's much changed since what we were looking at last week and what I alluded to earlier. There's no additional revenue numbers that we've gotten or we can project. Expenses haven't changed from where we were. So based on the budgets that have been submitted, there is a question that I'm working with Administrator Gordon on the short-term borrowing, what actual we have to pay, what should be budgeted to pay, because there's some discrepancy between numbers that we've gotten from Paul, so, and between what I have and what Administrator Gordon has in his sample budget that he's using. So we've gotten some just differing numbers, so he's working on that.
Significant difference or just a difference?
Short-
It's like $100,000 difference.
Short-term budgeting on what?
In this case?
Like, so we have things like the light project, the light at Sycamore Pine.
Right.
We have capital planning projects that we've borrowed. Some are enterprise, there's like one
So
vehicle
the
that's
things that we
enterprise.
borrowed last.
There's things that have already been borrowed.
Okay.
And we've already authorized borrowing.
Okay.
This is us repaying it, and it's all inside 2.5. The outside 2.5, we match 100%, and so the external debt is clean and easy. It's the inside stuff that's kind of gets a little wonky.
And the figures from Paul not jiving from you or?
From me to him, so, but from what I have and what
Tim
has.
Okay.
So, and some of it, like I say, it might be capital, or it might be a project that on one, just remember when he came to us, he
Right, right.
kind of had multiple sheets, so one of us might have an older sheet or a newer sheet. So I'm working with him on that. And so we've kind of identified that as one thing we have to work on. Other than that, we've gotten all the other departments. I'm sure there might be a difference of a penny here or there. But using the level funding, the dispatch, except for the expense line item. We're at $850,000 in the deficit from what was requested to what is actually available if we max out every dollar. It says 843 right now if you went onto our site, but rounding up because there's might be a couple pennies differences.
And your revenue projections, pretty solid?
Our revenue projections, his and mine match 100% with what we've spoken about several times.
Yes, but this looks like you're not gonna change, most likely.
The available revenue side, I do not anticipate changing
Okay.
significantly. That is.
That includes new growth?
So just to recap, so new growth is at 180,000, which I don't know, pull up the average for the last 5 years, but it's basically the average for the last 5 years.
Okay.
Within $10,000.
All right.
It's not simply low. Cherry sheet is the latest cherry sheet data that we have. Local receipts are local receipts that we actually took in last year, as we typically do. Ambulance reserve, actually what was taken in last year, or again, almost exactly the same. Cherry sheet off-seats from the cherry sheet. Assessor's overlay is $290,000, which is actually $2,000, $1,500 under what we did in FY16. So again, is it gonna change $1,500? Yes, but it's not gonna change
Yep.
6 figures kind of thing. State and county assessments stayed there. This is assuming that town meeting will use free cash to pay last year's snow and ice deficit of $257,000 and any snow and ice deficit that we encumber this year, which right now we've encumbered roughly $30,000. And we should have free cash and with our policy be able to pay that and still be within our policy structure. that we have. So that's how you get to the available revenue. We assume, again, that everything with water, sewer, solid waste, they are 100% self-funded except for any excluded 2.5 debt, which water, I think, is the only thing now that has excluded 2.5 debt. So on the revenue side, I don't anticipate it changing significantly. And when I say significantly, more than $20,000, I'll say, I'll put a number on it. So it comes to the expense side that we have to kind of work on some things. So I would say that, you know, preliminarily, start looking at, this is the, if you go to our drive, FY17 overall budget as requested. There's the revenue worksheet page, so you can see where all the numbers go, the expense worksheet page, and then the ATM budget, which is the one that we present to town meetings, so whichever format you prefer to look at. The ATM budget kind of has the percentages year over year, a little cleaner, and kind of salaries and expenses, big buckets kind of thing. But you can kind of start to look at that and see some areas maybe that you want us to look at. Our plan will be that we'll meet with Public Works next week. I'd like that if after that meeting with Public Works, we can start to dig into the budget a little bit. The only departments we'll have to meet with after that is Blue Hills the following week. In Blue Hills, we know what the number is, so it's more of an informational meeting for us. So we can start to actually at that next meeting, I'd like to get us started sooner this year. The Board of Selectmen with Administrator Gordon are planning, hopefully the end of March, to have they're gonna have a meeting on the budget. The selectmen are with all of their departments. We'll be invited to that meeting when it does happen, so if there's enough, we'll make it a full joint meeting. But their plan is to go through the budget sort of line by line so that they can give some recommendations and feedback. And department heads, if you don't know already, you'll be at that meeting and might be called upon to answer questions about why this or why that. And so the plan is that hopefully, you know, by the end of March, we can start to have or at least have their feedback and sort of a direction from ourselves, so we can start to have a cohesive budget sooner rather than later. We'll have, because at that point, there's quite a bit of town meeting articles that will take some of our time with needing new accepting of statutes and things like that, you know, have an impact on us, which will take a decent amount of meeting time into April.
There's another template, is that just you playing with the numbers? I like a better
What's
word.
that?
One that has your name on it.
Yeah, if it has my name on it, it's just me playing with numbers.
Okay.
So it's just a draft, me playing with numbers, trying to
Oh,
make
that's
stuff
fine.
work, so. You can feel free to look at it, it's on the drive, but
Yeah.
it's not necessarily a recommendation at this point, it's just to try to get somewhere. The town meeting and special town meeting warrants are open. In the past, the finance committee has submitted articles for different reasons. If somebody wants to present an article for us to review and possibly submit to the Board of Selectmen for placement on the warrant, feel free to do that. The committee, the ones that we submitted last year are on our drive. If somebody wants to, I'm not gonna take it and run with it, but if somebody wants to I will take it if the committee wants us to, but I won't present them. If somebody else wants to present it, that's fine, and we will do that.
And those two articles, I remember, I'm not
Yeah.
volunteering, I'm just trying to remember.
Three,
Three?
there's three.
Okay, one was what,
One's for
capital planning.
for redoing capital planning.
Yeah,
One is for contract posting,
yeah,
so making contracts transparent and available on internet and so many different places, the full contract, which we still haven't received the school contract that said we would have gotten, but just as a point of knowledge. And then the other one is about, there was specific language within the contract that which sort of mirrors what state statute is, but it requires that town meeting fund it, and it has, you know, we would put it in black and white in every collective bargaining unit that it's required to be there. So those are sort of the three things. The posting, the issue that town council had with the posting was that it wasn't worded in a way that would make it a bylaw, it would just make it an advisory type vote of town meeting, but it wouldn't require it to actually happen, or it wouldn't be a penalty, which bylaw penalty. And then the second one, town council's concern was that because it mirrored state statute, if state statute went away, then the selectmen would be giving up a power that they don't have now, but they may have in the future. So that was a concern that they had, the town council had.
The capital planning was.
The capital planning was, I think, more, the town council didn't have an issue with it, and I don't know if we pulled that one back or it was actually voted.
I could be wrong, and I'm not pointing at Susan, but I thought your chairman wanted to look at it. Did you
Yeah,
guys
so that's
have
right, I
that
think,
meeting?
that's right, but I'm, the actual vote, I think it ended up being,
Let's take a look at it.
no action, move no action, because there was a concern of
Not enough
the
time.
then chairman of the capital planning committee that was amazed that this existed and that he wasn't aware of it.
Okay.
So the two regarding the contracts and postings,
Yeah.
they need to be rewritten.
They need, yes, from a standpoint of, I think all they needed was verbiage that said, make this a bylaw.
Right.
And they didn't say, make this a bylaw. So I think that that's what would need to happen. I think that if this committee said, we want this and have it be a bylaw, knowing now what I know now from last year's meeting, is that would be presented to the Board of Selectmen and specifically said that this is meant to be a bylaw. So you have, and we have town council for a reason, town council will work with an article and a motion to make sure that it's worded, the motion is worded in such a way that it actually becomes an article, that it actually becomes a bylaw, by saying inserting within the bylaws in the appropriate section, da-da-da-da-da. That's kind of all you have to do. But because it wasn't there on the warrant, that means that then you can't add, it would change the intent of the warrant, because it didn't say in the original warrant that it was supposed to be a bylaw. So then somebody can say, well, if I knew it was gonna be a bylaw, I would have been there and voted differently or whatnot, so. And that's what we have town council for, to make sure that we're doing what the intent is and that kind of thing, but, so, if that's the pleasure of the committee, then we can take that up again, but, or if there's other issues that, this is the one time a year that we get town meeting to change bylaws, or, take a look at our finance committee, how we're set up, if you wanted, like we changed a couple years ago about just minor details, I forget, it, or when our term expires,
Yes.
to July 15th instead of May 8th, or whatever town meeting was, yeah. Just things like that, if you think about stuff that you say, hey, this would be a little bit easier if we did something a little bit differently. That's what the legislative body's there for, so let's use them. Anything else for tonight, or things that we should be looking at, discussing? Subcommittees, anybody have any questions with their subcommittees? Or if you want, actually, now might be a good time, or maybe after next week, to reach out or look at your subcommittee's specific budgets, and if you have any follow-up questions for them. We haven't seen, actually, town clerk, I'll try and send send her an email. I know she'll be busy tomorrow. Make sure you get out and vote if you're watching us live. If you're watching us on replay, then don't go out and vote tomorrow. Is there anybody else that we haven't seen that,
Did Recreation come in? I would keep
recreation
asking.
hasn't come in yet?
Okay.
We didn't receive a budget either, so.
Want to make sure that we've asked
Yeah.
multiple times
Yeah.
and brought up. So we don't have.
So
a-
town clerk, I'll take a look. If there's anything else that anybody sees that we haven't seen that we should, then.
Yeah, and I've asked the town clerk, or at least via email, to reformat, but I haven't heard back, so, we can try again.
I'll wait till definitely Wednesday before I ask any questions. All right, is there a motion to adjourn this evening?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank
Good night.
you.